Let's explore some of the ways that we can create color contrast in the color page of Resolve. Let's go to shot 49. This is just a nice one to start out with because we have a lot of good skin tones here, good lighting, and we have a lot of other stuff going on in the shot too. We're going to go ahead and leave our creative contrast here in our group post clip. And I'm going to hit Shift S on the keyboard to add a serial node before our contrast node. Now, you can kind of put these in whatever order you want. I generally like to put my color contrast before my contrast, just so our contrast kind of like groups everything together in one curve. But if you switched them around, you might not really notice a difference. Let's close our clips. Zoom in here. One basic way that we can create just some overall color contrast is by pushing contrasting colors into the various tones of our image. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about the brightest parts of the image, we can actually push a little bit warmer, and the darkest parts we could push a little bit cooler. So to do that, we can take our gain or maybe our gamma, and we're just going to push those ever so slightly a little bit warmer. Now, it's really easy to overdo this. You don't want something that looks like this. This is too far. But you can take this just a little warm, and it subtly just gives a little warm tone across the entire image. Now we can take our lift and push that a little bit cooler, just ever so slightly, like barely anything. And now you can barely even notice it, but we're already getting some separation here between the things that are already a little bit cooler and the things that are already a little bit warmer. Here's before, and here's after. Very subtle. Now, that's probably the easiest version of doing something like this. But when you adjust things with the lift, gamma, and gain, you're moving kind of really big ranges of color. The gain actually affects everything in the shot. It just affects the brightest things more. So what we could do is a version of this. I'll just reset our node grade, where maybe we use the log wheels. So I'll switch over to the log wheels. And now we can take our highlights and we can push those pretty darn far before we really get into trouble. In fact, we're probably not even into the highlights range. So I can take this down and adjust this range to just barely start kissing our image. And same thing for the shadow. We can take the shadow and push that really cool if we want to. And we're pushing a lot of these cooler tones into the shadows. And even now, I mean, it's definitely too much, but it's not offensive. Whereas if we did that with the lift, we would just be in the ocean. That's how blue it would be. And then we can kind of take this range and drag this down to 0, and then just kind of push it down until we just start to see those shadows getting a little bit cooler. So now here's before and here's after. And we have a much more refined look just using the log wheels. This technique of pushing contrasting colors into the shadows versus the highlights is often called split toning, because you're splitting the tones of the image into warm and cool, or pink and green, whatever you want. So we'll right click on this and we'll call this split, just so we remember what the heck we're doing. And now, like always, we should go to the other shots and make sure everything works decently and that we're not breaking things. So here's before and here's after with our split toning. This shot needs some work, but the split toning doesn't seem to be breaking it and making it terribly worse. If anything, it's making it better. So is every shot better with this or not? And I would say we're getting some pretty cool results. This is before and this is after. Definitely nice, kind of takes this warmer tones out of the shadows, puts a little bit more blue into her overalls here. It's nice. Now, there are some things that you can do when it comes to actually isolating a subject, but that's stuff that we're going to get into later when we talk about secondaries. For now, everything we're doing is being applied to the entire image, and we're not adding any masks, we're not selecting certain colors, we're just kind of putting a blanket correction over everything. And a lot of the time with creative looks, less is more. So this is without our contrast and our split, and this is with it. It's a big difference when you turn it off or on, but when it's on, you almost don't notice it.